Boy, that quieted the room. Good evening, everyone. This is the Education Committee. We're in the Cardinal Room in Upper Dublin High School. It is 2 minutes after 6, and I'd like to start the meeting. First, Dr. Wheeler, do you have an announcement? We're there.
I'm so busy, I'm not attending. Thank you. Yes, I do. A very happy announcement. I'm very pleased to share with the board and with our community that 2 Upper Dublin High School students have been announced as candidates for the United States Presidential Scholars Program. When they registered to take ACT or SAT, they indicated that they would like to be considered for this honor. And they are now in the process of putting together what I believe is a very comprehensive application process to move forward in that recognition program. And it is, again, our very great pleasure to congratulate Henry Hoffman and Casey Reed from Upper Dublin High School. Thank you.
Ms. Evans, do we have minutes?
January 4th was submitted to the committee today. Sorry, it was this morning.
Thank you. Okay, ready for the first presentation tonight about our new website, of something I'm very excited about.
So let's just take a quick visit to the old website.
Let's not say we did.
No, it's really important, right? So this is our old website. And I'm just going to quickly do some gymnastics here. Depending on the size of the device that I'm on, our old website is not adaptive. So it's not responsive to the device that you're on. It's difficult to navigate it on a phone. And I reached out to Finalsite to find out what the price was for a site redesign. And we currently pay $18,000 a year for our website. The site redesign was in the ballpark of $24,000 for the very basic package. I would get a few colors to choose from, and it would be adaptive, right? And so we started to walk through on the phone talking about what our options would be for $24,000, and then the magic phrase, and when you're ready to move your content, at which point I stopped. And I said, you mean when you're ready to move the content for us? And they said, no, when you're ready to do the movement of the content. So moving content from the old website to the new website, that's a process of over 100 hours of work. And so we would be paying $24,000 for new colors. And then if we wanted to change something a year from now, we'd be paying a lot of money for that change. We decided to build it ourselves, right, and just take the time and build it ourselves and let our Finalsite contract expire. So the new website will cost us a couple of $100 a year to host, and that's it. And so now we have a site that is mobilely adaptive. So let me just, as the device gets smaller, at a certain point in time, everything changes. So on my phone, on my iPad, I have an adaptive menu. And the site is ready for Retina, so as more and more devices have that high-resolution screen, we can have higher and higher resolution images. If someone would be so kind as to just go tap that light over there so we can see this a little bit better. Yeah, if you slide down the big one. We'll all be sort of cuddly here in the dark for a while. And this is a piece that we'll really be looking for from community members, is to send us that high resolution content, because it's a great venue for us to celebrate our students. We have featured right on the front the superintendent's blog, so this will update, and that link, clicking on the image, will bring you right to the superintendent's blog, and so Dr. Wheeler is using that as a venue for communicating with our community. We have a robust calendar, and so when you first click on the calendar, you can visit calendar tutorials, and that will teach you how to subscribe to the calendar. And the calendar lets us sort by category, so I can pick the category that I want. But what I really fell in love with was how intuitive the subscribe feature is. So if you're sitting in the back, it may be a little hard for you to see, but essentially it's navigation by icons. So you will recognize the icon of your device, right? Do you use Google Calendar, Outlook as your calendar, or are you on a Mac? You simply pick the flavor of choice, and you've subscribed to everything. For those who watch this at home later, or for anybody in this room, I advise you not to click subscribe right away, but watch the little video tutorial. The most important thing is to first decide what calendars you want to subscribe to. Otherwise, you're going to get them all several times over, as I've experimented. I'm subscribed to every calendar in the district at least 16 times. When you visit our schools, you'll notice everything has now been condensed into, I'm going to go over here to Jarretttown. I have a particular bias for the picture of just this little girl. She's just like, it's just fabulous. You just want to be there looking at what she's curious about. But most everything now has been condensed into accordions. So instead of having to scroll down a page to find what you want, it's conveniently grouped into an accordion. So I want to find about guidance over here at Jarretttown, and everything I need is right there, and then I can collapse that as well. Our administrative pages are similarly laid out. Board of Directors. A piece that we'll be waiting for from PSBA is an interactive searchable policy. So in the interim, we'll be uploading our current policies, but eventually that will be a link to an interactive database. Our district directory, and under district information we have the basic district directory, the home access center, e-notification sign up. And so this I'm going to jump over here, and again we have our quick links, home access center, parent, student, and e-notification sign up. As part of Final Site, we had e-notify. It was a service that was supplied. We also have a service we pay for called School Messenger. School Messenger we used for our robocalls, and e-notify we used for our weekly distribution emails from the different schools. The School Messenger could do both. So we're now leveraging the full power of School Messenger. We will let e-notify go away, and all parents of children are automatically signed up for the schools that their children reside in or go to school in, and for district level. But I, as a parent, right, so my daughter's at Fort, I'm subscribed to the district, I'm subscribed to Fort, but if I would also like to subscribe to the high school, I have to sign up again. I had signed up for the high school before, I have to sign up again because I'd like to know when the plays are coming out. Similarly, you know, our guests from the media, right, would have to sign up again. So we sent out an email blast to everybody on those distribution lists last week. We'll do so again this week, and it's a very quick link here to a form. Sign up again for notifications for the building or district level that you want to be signed up for. That's it in a nutshell, unless I have any questions.
Can I?
I have a question.
At this point, I'm going to turn the lights back on because you're
Okay.
being filmed and you're just these disembodied voices
Yes.
in the dark. Thank you.
Question, which many people would be interested in, is when do you anticipate making this go live?
So our plan is to do it this Friday or early in the day at some point on Monday. So Friday or Monday, there's a piece that the MCIU has to do, and right after they do it, their piece, I have to do my piece. So it's this little bit of a real-world coordination. And so we're just trying to nail down a time to make that flip over. And then for anywhere from an hour to a few hours, if you went to udsd.org, you could arrive at either website. After which it'll all be done. Is there any real wood in the room? There we go.
Is there any change as a result of doing this? Is there any change in the process by which we'll be managing content? And I don't mean actually the technical process, but who and on what schedule and that kind of thing.
Over time, Final Site and the administrative rights for Final Site were distributed. I'm a big believer in distributed leadership. became too distributed. And so we had a lot of dead content and unattended content on the website. We had a lot of redundant content on the website. And we had really no quality control as to the aesthetic of the website. So now moving forward, Brooke Evans will be our webmaster, and the community will feed content and content changes to her. But there are, for folks who need to do daily content updates, for example, we come over here to food services. So Kristen Deli, our food services manager, wants to add a lot of valuable content here to this part of the website. But if you want to get to our current menus, it's a public Google folder that anyone can view. She will maintain those menus there. So for her, right, she doesn't have to worry really about the website. And everybody who had to make any kind of monthly or weekly or daily update now will be using this protocol. Put it in there. It's always live. It's always up to date. Easy. They can manage that content anywhere in the world, and it's embedded in the website.
Just the PTOs and PTAs, I'm looking, there's a link to their individual websites.
Yes.
So there's nothing in terms of trying to get a consistent look or them using our structure.
So the
It's
PTOs
whatever-
and PTAs, right, they manage their websites, they manage the activities and that activity schedule that's really unique to their particular community. And if we brought them into this space, I think we lose some of that flexibility that they have. I think we have very strong protocol now with our shared leadership protocol and shared leadership summits on talking about district initiatives and a cohesiveness around that. I think it's valuable still, and this is my opinion, to have that individual flavor. But it's definitely something that we have now the flexibility to follow up with in the future.
When they go to, I'm looking at Jarretttown's PTA, it's not our website. So
No, it's
is
not.
there something on the bottom, before it goes to that website, does it say that you're leaving the school district of Upper Dublin website?
Yeah, there's still a few of those spaces where, like for all of our teacher websites, we have
Right.
that disclaimer in place, right? And we have to put them still in place for those links that leave
That
our
leave our
district website.
Okay,
Same with the Education Foundation, et cetera.
right.
Any other questions?
Well, I would just like to say thanks for both finding the fiscally responsible way to do this and for all the hard work that went into designing and preparing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Phil says we, and I think this was many hours of his own time at night, and we really appreciate it. And I think between Phil and Brooke, they've done a good job doing both the programming and the content population, and thank you both very much.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to you. Next on the agenda.
So our next topic is talking about the Gallup poll that was done at the high school.
Before Principal Schultz comes up, I'll just give a little context to the poll and student surveys in general. I think we are, as we move into understanding what is at the core of teaching and learning, we're looking to students to find out what their experience is. And there are many surveys out there that can work to help us understand student experience. This Gallup poll is an interesting intersection between our work through excellence and equity and our parent and student and family groups and our student voice. And so we've been meeting through excellence and equity with different community groups to help understand what the experience of students is, and out of those meetings came a request to do a Gallup poll, which was administered by our high school between October and November of 2015 in the fall. And so we have the results of that poll. Before Principal Schultz gives us some information about that, what I would like to say is that we will be doing additional sharing at the March meeting, where Principal Dr. Jill Clark will be reporting about a homegrown student survey from Sandy Run, and then in March, Mr. Vinogradov and I will be talking about Bright Bites, which is another survey. So what I would like to say is that while we are exploring different ways for us to understand what our students are experiencing, I'm not sure that we've decided quite yet on what the best venue and what the best data results are. Moving forward, I think we'd like to find one survey that gives us exactly what we need. And I'm not sure that we found that to date, but for now, I will turn this over to Principal Schultz to update us on the Gallup poll.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Morrison. Thank you, school board members and community members for coming out tonight. As Mrs. Morrison indicated, the origin of the poll and the idea behind the poll resulted from a committee meeting of those who are involved with the African American and Black Students and Family Committee. The thought was, as we look to see what we can do to bridge the gap and to deepen connections that exist in the building and throughout the district, some type of survey might help give us the right background information so that we can action plan accordingly. After some conversation in that committee, we decided upon the Gallup poll after looking to see what would the logistics of it be and looking to see what types of questions and thus what type of information we would gather. It is broken down into 4 categories, which you're going to see a little bit more clearly in a moment. One is that of engagement, another is hope, third is entrepreneurial application, and then finally career and financial literacy. The rest of that introductory blurb, which if you have a handout you can probably read a little bit more clearly, indicates that there are 24 questions, that it is a poll which is given to students in grades 5 through 12, that we get links to student success. What you don't see there, which was a little bit of a disappointment, is that you don't get disaggregate data. So the only information we received was that of the aggregate. The good news of the aggregate is, with the one-to-one initiative, the way that we administered the survey was to extend homeroom simply for 5 minutes. We put a link on the website that was only available for 15 minutes. We announced to all students in all homerooms that they would please take out their Chromebooks, go to the school district website, click on the link, and then they simply went through the 24 survey questions, which were administered through a Likert scale, which ranged from strongly disagree to strongly agree. The first area is that of engagement. Maybe oversimplifying a little bit for the purpose of presentation, but the areas of strength involve safety, caring, and having a best friend in the school. And those areas that we want to take a look a little bit more closely at the results and see what we can do about, and this is what we're going to follow on each slide. Be nice to see students have more fun at school. That was the students, not the teachers, that took the survey. And in the last 7 days, someone told me that I was doing good work at school. I think for all of us, that's a reminder that an atta-girl or an atta-boy along the way does leave a mark. You'll see N values on the left and on the right. 1,091 is the number of students in the high school who responded to that set of questions, and the figure that's over 800,000 is the number that responded on the national level. Second area was that of hope. Very pleased to see that these were overall the highest scores on both the local and on the national level. Students are very confident that they will graduate from high school, that they have great futures ahead of them, and that they can find many ways in which to solve problems. One area of focus is that we have students who don't necessarily see a mentor in their lives who encourage their development. Third area is that of entrepreneurial aspiration. We have students who want to start their own businesses. We have students who believe that they will invent something that will change the world. Overall, on both the local and the national level, this was the area where we had the lowest scores. Students may want to start their own business, but they're not currently learning how to start and run their own business, and they don't currently have their own businesses. And then finally, the fourth category is that of financial literacy. Again, the high school and students in particular were well above the national area on just about all areas. They have bank accounts, they have money in those bank accounts, they are very actively involved in the high school, and an area of focus is learning how to spend and save money. So what are we doing with this information? Well, we have shared it with 2 of the committees that are part of the Excellence and Equity Consortium. The first one was that of African American Black Students and Families Committee, and as I mentioned, that was the group where this idea originated. The second group where this information was shared was that of Asian students and families. The results will be compared with responses that were obtained in a similar survey, which was given to students who are currently involved in our Connections group. For those of you that aren't aware, Connections has been going on for 3 years now. We just had our 3rd annual event here in the Cardinal Room with a guest speaker from the county who was outstanding. Connections meets during our enhancement periods, and it is specifically comprised of African American and Black students with staff members from this building and then a couple that are good enough to visit us from other buildings. We have study skills sessions, we have mentoring type of activities, but as you can tell by the name of the group, Connections, the idea is to build and strengthen that bridge. So we don't have the exact survey results of those students, but we do have similar survey results to which we'll draw comparisons. The results were also shared with the high school staff. We announced it at a faculty meeting, and then we flipped the faculty meeting and pushed out the survey results via Google Classroom. The first assignment was to read over the survey results. The second assignment that was pushed out through the classroom was that of a survey in which respondents were asked to identify a strength, an area of need, and most importantly, reflect on what they could personally do in response to the information that they gathered. Our intention is to take the results from that third question and to put it into a Wordle, which will lead to a discussion the next time the faculty gets together. The third point on this slide is something that Mrs. Morrison already indicated. We are considering, and we have not yet decided, whether or not we will continue to use the Gallup student poll and its information. If we do believe that it is the best indicator and measure of student perceptions toward high school and where they are in life, we will let this first year serve as baseline data, but as indicated before, we have not yet made that decision. So that concludes the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Do you have any idea from Gallup or anything what the error, the standard error is? So do you know, when you compare this to the national average, how much of a difference is really a difference? No. The
I
answer-
do not-
What
I-
is the statistically
Yeah.
significant?
I don't have
Margin
the
of error.
statistical significance at this point. We looked at the data in two different ways. One was a comparison to the national data, and one was simply a comparison to the Likert scale. So the one piece of information I know, or I'm confident I will graduate high school, that was one of the highest scores we got. I think it was almost all at the
Yeah, 90%
agree or
were
de-
the
yeah,
strongly
whole-
agree.
Yeah,
Strongly
strongly
agree.
agree or agree. That was also one of the highest scores for the national poll as well. I also, as we don't have the disaggregate data from the high school, we don't have the disaggregate data from the national poll as well. So we don't know where the results originated.
Hey,
It's a
prob-
great point.
You probably don't know if there are any polls that give you the ability to do disaggregated data unless you do your own.
Well, I do think, and I haven't delved into it, but the Bright Bites Clarity Survey does talk about student engagement, which is an important part of what we're looking for, but I'm not sure it addresses categories like hope, which is something that I think we're interested in. It'll be good to see Dr. Clark's presentation next month because that's a homegrown survey, and as we move forward, perhaps we can learn and use a bit of both, and we're certainly open to learning if there are surveys out there that would be very comprehensive.
I'm just going to elaborate a little bit. So when we came to it would be great to have one survey for everything, but I think it's important to diagnostics, the corollary is looking at the medical world, right? So a blood test is not, it's not a panacea as a diagnostic, right? And there are multiple forms of diagnostics to look holistically at the organism. And so as we look at student engagement, student achievement, the Gallup poll gives us a lens. Bright Bites is geared specifically to how are you using technology effectively in the classroom to get at higher order thinking and personalized learning with kids, and all of the different facets that support that. And then Dr. Clark's homegrown survey, right? That's that becomes very interesting because it's that dynamic between what the community feels is important that they put out there as questions and that the feedback that they're getting back. And all of these together really gives us actionable items moving forward.
I do have a question about, I recognize that we did not write this survey, but there was one question that surprised me, which is, I have my own business now. Are we expecting students even, I mean, and it's 5 through 12, or 6 through 12, or something like that. Are we actually expecting our students to have businesses?
Lemonade stand?
You did call that out as one that you found we could work on. Is that something you think we should work on?
Well, I think for, you're asking me seriously?
Well, you didn't, you could have.
No, I
left it
did. I
out.
could have let it go. We were behind national averages on that one. So it would seem to indicate that there are a lot of high school kids out there who have already begun some kind of entrepreneurial initiative on their own participation. I do think that the fact that that particular category was low overall does give us some ideas in terms of curriculum and maybe extracurricular, more along the lines of enhancement of bringing in some people from the outside for Washington Business Alliance, maybe drumming up a little bit more enthusiasm. And I think we can get stories even of graduates that actually did begin their own businesses while they were in high school. So is that going to be one of my 5 goals that I submit to the superintendent next year? Probably not, but I do think in terms of overall awareness in the district and in the building, we could improve.
I think your comment also begs the question, if you have students in 5th to 12th grade and you're using a national norm, but it's being normed against just our high school, that's kind of a difficult comparison. So I think it took the opportunity for us to go through this to see the results and then to really think about whether these results, how helpful these results are. They're certainly somewhat helpful, but is it something that we want to consider doing again? It's really, on the table.
Just as a matter of observation or one person's opinion, some of these things seem interesting, but if it seems like an unusual collection of things in the same survey. I mean, I think it's useful. I mean, I think financial literacy is an important skill, but does that relevant to sort of school climate, if that's what we're more interested in? Doesn't seem to me that that's in the same grab bag. And I think entrepreneurial aspirations are, again, interesting to see, and as the results, whether they're higher or lower, do point out something about our student body. But there's a lot of career aspirations, and I think looking more broadly at careers, and do you think that you know something about the potential career fields, and do you know how to get there, or things like that? A little more broadly, if there were another instrument that provided some of those other things, that would be, I don't know if I would say preferable, but it would be interesting to compare and see if there were something else that did those sorts of things also.
I think when we got the results and took a look, we were somewhat disappointed that there was no opportunity for open-ended response, because some of these we really don't understand truly what our students were saying. It's my expectation that we're going to use this with the faculty as an opportunity to start conversations about what are the lessons learned here, what other options and opportunities might we offer for students, but also as a jumping off point to have more conversation, be it through enhancement periods, with students to try to delve a little more deeply and understand what are they telling us here. and it's going to be a good conversation starter, I think.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have fun at school. The norm is 5 through 12. So we're comparing our high school students to 5 through 12 on all these. So to me, it's I don't know if it tells us that much. I mean, a 5th grader's, I don't know if a 12th grader is going to tell us that they're having fun, but I think a 5th grader might. So I don't know how you look at this. I don't know how you would interpret this data when it's looking at high school versus a national norm, 5 through 12. I think we just have to look to see what our high school students have said, and to me, there's some concerning questions. You know, there's a few things that I was surprised to see just looking at the high school data, not at the norm, because you really can't look at the norm.
I do think we
Yep.
could have a little more fun sometimes.
I think we have fun all the
Let's
time.
go for fun.
I have fun.
Also, when you look Dr. Ludwig's question about what the standard deviation is, really we want a survey that doesn't ask us to dig deep into the results to figure out what the standard deviation is for us to figure out what it means relative to our own students. So, 800,000 students have taken it. There are approximately 30 million public school students, I think grades 5 to 12. So it's still a large sample size, and I'm sure it gets after something, and we're certainly have learned something, and I think it's a great opportunity for the faculty and administration of the high school to reflect, and we'll see where it can take us.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is an update on restructuring. Mrs. Morrison.
The next couple of agenda items are more discussion items. I'll do a brief update and we'll have the opportunity to discuss. And I'll begin with restructuring. There are a number of things coming together very nicely to prepare for restructuring, which is the elimination of the lowest level in 9th grade in science, in the area of biology, social studies, and English language arts. One of the most important ways that we're preparing is that we are sending a team that has already gone out once and will go out for more times this spring to the MCIU to prepare for co-teaching. On that team, we have both principals Bob Schultz and Chris Mitchner, Dr. Ian Sandberg, who's our secondary special ed supervisor, as well as 9th grade biology, social studies, and special education teachers. They're going to be examining different methods for co-teaching and working together to implement a co-teaching plan for this coming fall. Additionally, we are looking at a way to develop coaching staff using current teachers. That wouldn't be any new staff. And the idea of coaching is that it can be a guide by the side to help grow instructional practices and to benefit student achievement. We're again looking to partner with the MCIU, who has a monthly Pennsylvania Instructional Coaching Forum, and they provide other supports as well. The 9th grade is going to be built around a teaming concept. The high school scheduler, Principal Chris Mitchner, is looking to put 3 teams in place where students would have the same biology, social studies, and English teacher, and perhaps even the same math teacher. Those teams would then have collaboration time so that they can meet with the special education co-teachers as well as the instructional coach that would be meeting. So it would be very comprehensive time to meet and plan and to go back out again to support our students who are in our academic track, which was formerly referred to as Track 2. Additionally, teachers are continuing to do strong backwards design to make sure that there are common assessments. We are going to use common assessments this spring so that we can capture the data of how students are doing in our Level 2 and honors classes so that we can use those same common assessments next spring so we can capture the data. We're very concerned that the perception that the rigor is somehow falling be addressed, and so that we have some real data we give the same common assessment this spring as we're giving next spring. And again, the spring after, we'll be able to see, well, if students did well this spring before we restructured and they continue to do well. If that's not the case, what is it that we need to put into place to make sure students are achieving? There will be strategic scheduling of students based on student needs into the co-taught classes. And a question did arise if somehow that would cause sort of a tracking that's not really named. So for example, we do still have a level 3 mathematics classes in 9th grade. We also have a 9th grade reading strategies class. So I spoke to Mr. Mitchner today to ask him, so if we have students who are in that level 3 class, is there a chance that they're going to move together from class to class to class as a cohort, which would create this invisible tracking? And what he said was not really, because with 3 teams, he has many more options to put students into who are teamed. They'll be sitting in different classes, so that he can't guarantee that that wouldn't occasionally happen, but it's not something that's a big concern. And then finally, for our restructuring update, our AEA form will be more closely aligned between Sandy Run and the high school, and it will be posted on the website for parents to download.
Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I want to comment that I appreciate that it sounds like a lot of thought and detail is going into ensuring that not only supports are in place for the students, which is obviously critical, but that perceptions are addressed, such as the thought about a cohort moving together that would seem like a hidden track. That's not one I had appreciated before, and so I do appreciate that level of thought is going into it.
Okay, good question.
Go ahead.
So you talk about that there's going to be times for the team teachers to meet. Is there also going to be time built in for, say, the science teachers between the 3 teams, or the social between those teams to meet and collaborate?
I think the primary collaboration time will be interdepartmental, so teachers who share the same students. We do have, through our enhancement period, departments do have off. I'm not sure it's enough time, and I think we're going to make sure that there's opportunity on half-day professional development, but it's just so hard. There's a scarcity of time as it is in the schedule, so a decision had to be made between teachers who are supporting the same students and same subject area teachers getting together. We are aware of that, and we'll continue to make sure that they have that opportunity, but it's not part of the schedule per se.
Yeah, I mean, you presented a lot of information. I'm furiously taking notes because people have been asking me where we are with this. But there wasn't anything that we can share with parents that, and staff, and some staff that could be concerned. I'm just wondering, will there be anything prepared, anything written as a status, or it seems a lot of this is still in progress, but the co-teaching, the coaching, team concept.
A lot of it is in progress. We certainly can prepare an update if the board would like, but I would say if folks are contacting you or staff members are, refer them back to us, please, and we will make sure that they get all the information. But we certainly can prepare a status report update if the board would like. Would you like that for the legislative meeting next week?
I think there are going to be, as we move through this, there will be, I think there, because this is a change and this is new, there will be people in the community and within the high school who want to know progress on sort of changes and answers to questions on a regular basis. So it might be nice if this were a topic of either a superintendent's update or something like that in one of your letters or one of your updates, that here's where we are, and maybe again later in the spring
And I will be happy to do that. I'm concerned, though, if we're hearing from members of the general community, folks who don't necessarily take the time or have access to my updates, would it make sense for us to present something during a televised legislative meeting? I mean, we can use multiple venues, but I'm concerned that the people who already are reading about it aren't the ones who you are referencing.
Right.
So we need to broaden the audience that receives the information.
Well, I think the more of an effort that we put out to show that we are building it and we're still working on it, and here are some of the concepts, we need to know what are the questions as we do it. You know, I mean, there's a lot of questions. Example, co-teaching doesn't mean you're going to have 2 teachers in the classroom
Does.
every time. I mean, you know, every period in the academic track, you're going to have 2 teachers in the
For
classroom?
the co-talk, yes, for the co-talk classes every period, every time.
So
But I think what you're asking is
yeah,
not every
just-
single academic level class will be co-taught. Is that your question?
That's what I mean, how would we do that in terms of staffing?
So I'm wondering, and
Just-
I'm happy to answer your question in just a minute. I'm wondering more about the venue of being able to discuss this. And we did do, so in December, we did a formal presentation, and some of these things were certainly referred to. We're now 8 weeks past that presentation and are moving forward. I'm wondering, should we wait until it's February now? This was sort of more of an in-between update that perhaps didn't quite warrant a full presentation yet. We could be happy to do that, certainly through a board update, but as well at the next education committee meeting. I'm not sure if that would make sense, because I think it is ongoing and growing and evolving, and so I think this was more of an attempt just to inform the public and the school board what's going on.
Right.
So when would you see as a time to do a more formal update? Something that would have, I don't know, whether it's a written update or PowerPoints that could be posted on the website.
I think in March or April would be the next time to give time for ideas to evolve. There are staffing meetings that still would need to occur as we develop this plan.
Okay. But do you know, are we at a point now you can comment about co-teaching, how that would, will you see that actually occurring next year in those academic classes?
Right now, Mr. Michener is in the process of creating the schedule for next year, and the vision is to have co-teaching in 9th grade on each one of those teams for each academic subject, though not each academic subject would be co-taught, but many of them would be.
Part of the process that Mr. Michener is going through is the fact that students are just finishing up registering for courses, as I understand, and that's going to influence some of this as well. Would you like a specific presentation on co-teaching? Would that be helpful, perhaps at the next education committee meeting? I see this as the venue for a lot of the conversation. That's the purpose of this committee. So if you would like, we would certainly be happy to do that.
It might be useful at some time in the spring to talk about the techniques, you know, with instructional coaching and co-teaching as a topic. I think in terms of the kinds of questions people in the community have, if I mean, I hope I'm representing some of the concerns, is to find out a little bit about what the timeline is for making some of these other decisions. I mean, I guess if anyone thought about it, you don't know how many students are going to be in every level until after we've had the program of studies night, and people have until I'm not sure when to sign up. What is it? Is it toward the end of February?
It's this week.
This week? And then, you know, there's some processing, and then just a little bit maybe about what the milestones are and the timeline, so that, I don't know, it reduces some of that kind of generalized anxiety that's out there about when am I going to know, you know, what it's going to, the details, the nitty-gritty of, like, if I have an 8th grader, what type of class? Are they going to be in a co-taught class? What's the probability? When am I going to get to know some of these things? If I'm a staff member, when am I going to know if I'm co-teaching or who I'm co-teaching with, or when I get to start planning? I think it's not that you have to know everything now, but knowing a little bit about when you might know might reduce some of the anxiety. So, I mean, that might be something maybe for next month, if that's possible.
We could certainly do that. I'm imagining that through faculty meetings, the faculty at the high school is being aware of at least some of the planning. I guess I'm taken aback that are there faculty members saying they don't understand what's happening?
I don't know. I don't know what the intention of the presentation is. I think that's something we need to tease out. I do think it's very important to keep in mind the exact answers to questions that I think people want. We will not have until late into the spring when the final is close to being complete. We are just starting a professional learning community partnership with the IU. We've had one live session, we've had one webinar. There are 2 more live sessions and I think 1 or 2 more webinars that our team will complete prior to making definitive decisions around what exactly co-teaching looks like. So if we want periodic updates with information and maybe some benchmarks and maybe some goals on the calendar as to when we think we'll have those answers, we can certainly do that. I just want to caution being definitive prior to the completion of the schedule puts Mr. Michener at a pretty significant disadvantage.
Me personally, I don't want to push anything. I just think knowing a little bit about when those things would be done would get people to stop asking until the time when they're supposed to know. I don't know how widespread any of the anxiety is, but it's a change, and I think there is a little bit.
Well, if I may,
Yes.
I completely concur with what Dr. Wheeler said as well. If board members, respectfully, if board members are getting questions, please refer them to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we might not have a definitive answer, but we can point to the plan, we can point to the background work that's been done, and we can point to the expectations, both time-wise and with, some degree of definity when it's going to happen.
Okay.
So the three teams, would that only be for the academic? I mean, there would be some students that would be perhaps in the academic track of science and social studies and maybe taking honors English, right? So it gets a little bit more challenging to create those teams.
The teaming concept isn't like the middle school in
Right.
terms of students won't know necessarily I'm on the hippies team or whatever. They choose to name themselves very creatively at the middle school, but the teachers will know, and eventually I think that will be made clear to students. It's not 100% perfect. Mr. Michener is a very able scheduler, and he's going to try his best to make it work out.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be some cases where it can't work out perfectly. I guess I would add, too, that we can't answer any questions, and some of the questions were answered in the update. We have a team of 9th grade teachers in the academic subject areas. Special education teachers are going out to be trained in co-teaching. Now, it may be that some of those teachers who, if they're being trained, would already know that they've been identified in some way. They may say, gosh, this might not be for me. So there are many reasons why it's late spring before those decisions are finalized. But I also want to say that we have all of these 8th grade students who have never been split into different tracks. So they don't know the experience of being sorted. And we've developed a very strong data set, stronger than ever before, that I hope will continue to grow, that it shows a very balanced view that when teachers make their professional recommendation, it points back to students' skill. And so it will make scheduling easier because we can see very clearly which students really do need a lot of support, which ones don't. And then there's this concept called sort of hand scheduling, where the administrative team can make sure that the neediest students are scheduled across multiple sections, i.e. we don't have our 5 neediest students who are sitting in one class together. Instead, they're in a co-taught class with 2 teachers, but perhaps they're, just with one other student who needs that level of support. And then the other thing I want to say is that it really is not that many students we're talking about to begin with. I just want to remind everyone that I think in English language arts, it's 20 students who this year are in our lowest levels, in social studies a bit more, probably the highest in biology with 40 students. And we do already have some supports in place, but again, 8th grade students don't understand the concept of track 3, and I think that's kind of a wonderful thing.
And not to be redundant, but please, we don't want the board to be burdened with having to provide answers. Refer folks to us, and we will be more than happy to speak with them and get back to them. So please let us help in that way.
Because we as a board, this is what we firmly believe is the restructuring, and we have to do everything we can to make it work. But it's also a buy-in of everybody being committed to know that this is the right thing, and this is going to work. This is going to work. It could be a little messy at the beginning, to quote Mr. V's term. But we get through that, and this is going to benefit students that we have that haven't benefited as much as they should have in their careers at the high school. They're going to be much better prepared to go on. So this is the time that we have to do that planning.
Seems to me that some practical next steps would be a presentation around co-teaching and coaching, which are terms perhaps new to some board members, community, also with some idea of what the plan might look like around that. So without specifically, we're not sure yet with numbers of students and staffing decisions, but we could say, well, here's what co-teaching is, here's some models, here's where our teams are, here is where the staffing allocations might go. And if you would like that presentation in March or in April, we would be happy to do that as part of the education committee or however you would like to see that.
Yeah. Now, we had a placeholder for 2 special ed teachers in the budget, but do you still see them as being special ed teachers, or is that something you're still looking at?
Yes, they're still in as
Special ed
co-teaching.
teachers? Special. Supposed to, okay.
It is, we do see that we have our special education teachers are experts in differentiating instruction and helping all students access learning. And so that marriage of special ed and regular ed can be really powerful in that way.
Even though I think, there are people who have questions, I really want to take this time to thank everybody in the curriculum office and in the high school who has done a really great job of preparing, working hard over multiple years to plan and try to make this as successful as possible. So I really do thank you. I just, wanted to ask some of the questions that we're hearing out in the community. So thank you.
Can I call out pupil services, because I think that's an
Oh,
integral part of
sorry
this.
about that.
Yep.
Not to slight pupil services. Thank you. Okay, I guess we're ready to move on to our next topic.
The next topic is very exciting for us. We are hoping to enter into a partnership with Educational Impact. Educational Impact is an online provider of e-learning and professional development for teachers and administrators that actually goes K-16. The company's been focusing on the use of integrating online learning and streaming video specifically. One of the things that they provide is a very full, robust library of the Danielson Protocol, which we use for our teacher observation model. They approached us to say, we think you're a wonderful district. We have heard fabulous things about your one-to-one initiative, and we would love to come in and use you as a model for other districts that are considering this, and we'd like to partner with you. And so the agreement is that we would have access to their professional resources, which are at quite a cost. I believe they're around $20,000. We would have that at no cost. If we partner with them, we will give them the opportunity to use us as a model for what one-to-one can look like. And in exchange for the next year, we can use their professional learning resources, which I think we can make very good use in, particularly around giving resources to support the Danielson work. Additionally, Educational Impact has said, well, if this works out, we would love to use you as a lab school because you do great work here. And so it's just an opportunity to celebrate all of the great things that are happening in Upper Dublin. To partner, Educational Impact has a lot of expertise because that's what they do for a living is make videos. And they make videos about teaching and learning. And so it was really great. They came in, they actually videotaped trained the trainer to see what that might look like around differentiated instruction. And after they were done, they sent us this really great email saying, it was so good to be with you and to see that, yes, it's true, we agree, it's messy to roll something in, but to see a group of educators, teachers, and administrators together really digging in, having very honest conversation about how we can meet the needs of students through professional development. So we're really excited. We're excited to partner with them. We're excited to have that mirror to help us through their eyes see what we really look like. And so the proposal is that we enter into a partnership, which I've shared with the board.
Are there any questions, comments?
Their catalog of videos is extensive. Has someone been chartered with going through this and figuring out how we can use this and where we can use this and how we would schedule the use of this and all that kind of stuff?
So yes, we have been talking with our Instructional Professional Development Council about this. One of the things that we know is bad pedagogy for adult learners is just to send somebody a video to watch. So we're looking to embed their video in professional development, and we're going to think about the protocol for our Danielson observation. So when that conversation happens, that reflective conversation between the administrator and the teacher, perhaps how to create a more engaging environment might come up, and the teacher might say, well, gosh, I'm not sure what that really looks like. Through training, our administrators will have access to a lot of video around Danielson's Domain 3C engagement that they can share, for example, or that they can watch together. So I think what's key to this is rolling in this PD resource in a way that's meaningful. And so we're beginning to develop a plan of what that might look like. There are districts currently who are partnering with Educational Impact. They use this video series on snow days so that teachers can receive professional development when they can't come into school. But again, I would caution about just assigning video without support. And I don't believe that asynchronous, just watching video model is really powerful. So we're just looking for ways to kind of live into it in a way that's sound for our staff.
And as Ms. Morrison alluded to, as we go through this library, it becomes this really rich resource when we plan our professional development. And one of the most enjoyable ways to use that video is just a window into another classroom. And it's none of our teachers. But we can look at a teacher and we can completely rip it apart and say, oh, that's brilliant, or oh, I already do that, or that's exactly what I'm looking for, or I would never do that, and why wouldn't we do that? And in that way, it's just great to have this rich library where I can drill down and say, this grade level, this subject area, this pedagogical practice, and what can I pull up about that?
So that sounds great. I guess my biggest concern is, given that it looks like there are many, many hours of videos here, who's going to take the time to go through them and figure out if they're actually any use to us?
They're very well categorized, and they have resource personnel. You can call them up and you can say, I need video on instructional coaching, and they will put together a library of 10 short videos that you can peruse. So it's not unsupported at all, and we would have somebody who would support us the entire time through that.
All right, good, thank you.
Is it possible for teachers, administrators, or even board members to just go on and look at videos?
Yes, absolutely. We will share the login once the school board approves this partnership. But again, I want to make sure that it's done in a positive way. So I would hate to just share the resource and have somebody click on it and go, right? So there's some professional development training that would need to occur to help people understand how it could be best used to meet their needs.
As an agreement, should we have the solicitor review this? Just determine what we're committing to, and it's a 1 year contract. What happens after first year?
The 1 year contract is for our access to their professional development. Once they're finished with their filming, which would be it wouldn't take that long, that would end that part of the relationship. I should add, though, as part of the partnership, they are doing a promotional video for Upper Dublin for our use only that we can share with the community so they can have a better understanding of what our one-to-one Chromebook roll-in means for our students.
Right, and just to inform some of the board members, Mr. Sirota, Dr. Ludwig, and I, just the three of us, were interviewed today, and I think Ms. Morrison was, Mr. Vinogradov, Dr. Wheeler, for this
Dr. Grazula.
Dr. Grazula, for this two-minute video.
Both for professional
Ms. Hultquist.
development as well as, it was an elementary principal,
Yeah.
Ms. Elquist.
Dr. Clark, Mr.
Yeah.
Schultz.
Mr. Schultz?
A cast of
Yeah, you are.
thousands.
Yeah, and let me comment too. When we did this, it was a great feeling when they were in our green room, and how impressed they were with the capabilities that we have and the technology that we have in this building to be able to do what they were doing. So kudos again to.
There are also additional not in contract language support. So, for example, on February 12th in the afternoon, we're having a share fair as part of our professional learning where teachers are offering great things that they're doing in the classroom instructionally that other teachers can sign up for. There are 2 instructional experts on their staff who are also willing to give workshops. And so they're just doing that because they love doing this work and they'll be here, and so they want to sort of partner with us.
Yeah, I just think we need to just clean up the agreement with signatures, and that's what we have the solicitors for, and dates and all that other stuff. If we're agreeing to something, we need to know what we're agreeing to and get there.
No question.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
And I'll just end with a Keystone update, and I apologize, I feel like I've been talking a lot tonight. So very briefly, Keystone requirements have finally been approved. Not sure I'm using the right legislative language, Dr. Levinowitz. Passed. Which pushes the Keystone graduation requirement to 2019, meaning that now this year's 9th graders who will be taking algebra and biology Keystones will be taking those classes for graduation. The Pennsylvania Department of Education is currently working on a plan to address some concerns around Keystones. One of the main areas of concern is what happens if a student isn't proficient. Currently, the state has a project-based assessment protocol in place, which in design was probably well-intentioned, that students who weren't proficient could do a project, and then that project would be graded, and then they could pass. The difficulty is both with the high degree of in-district support that is needed and required by the law in order for students to be able to do that project-based assessment. In-district certainly had been responding as we had been responding. We went through one entire project-based module in our biology class for students who were not proficient. But then even when we completed the project-based assessment and sent them off, there are currently not enough certified teachers to evaluate those projects. So we should be hearing some more updates and potential changes to Keystones. At this time, with our 9th grade students taking those exams, we will continue to provide support to students and give them the opportunity to take the Keystone again. in the winter and perhaps next spring. And we will be delaying any plans for project-based assessment until we have more information in the spring of 2017.
It's my understanding that the bill that was passed also, whether it's in the wording or the intent, was to study
In the wording.
it was in the wording itself?
Yeah, it was in the, yeah.
To study the Keystone exam process and make recommendations about changes, whether those changes are about project-based learning or whether it should be a graduation requirement at all. I'm not sure what the extent of the study would be, but I guess we will see. Any other comments or questions on the Keystone update? So before we go to community input, there are some motions that we will be bringing next week, and I don't know if all the board members, I guess our large committee here, if we have any questions about, I guess there are two student activities that are going to be recommended. One is a choir festival, and one is a Sandy Run Middle trip to Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands for 2017, which I want to know if I can sign up for.
Me too.
I'm already thinking about it.
Is there anything, anybody has any questions about either of those things?
I do have a question about the trip to Ecuador and Galapagos Islands. Is that next year's equivalent to this year's trip to Italy and Greece? Is that?
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
It is.
Any other questions? And then I think we'll recommend that those be moved forward. The next one is about summer school, approving the standard summer school program for next year. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that?
I'm just curious if these prices are the same as they have been in the past, or if there are changes.
Over the last several years, we have raised the tuition for summer school. We did not raise it this year.
Thank you.
And we do provide an opportunity, if you're free and reduced lunch, what's?
If you, there are two categories, but if you have free lunch, I believe the tuition is $25 for the summer, and if you're reduced lunch, I'd have to get that exact figure
Okay,
for
but
you.
we do something. Is there anything when you look at this list? I know we always think about expanding additional opportunities. Is there any of these new, or is this what we offered last year?
Well, we've significantly changed the program to be more project-based, to be more skills-focused, and to have an enrichment component. We may be bringing something forward where we may be able to offer Chinese to students for credit. We're just not there yet, so that would have to come under a separate motion. But we are looking for ways to expand summer school, to give more opportunity for enrichment, and certainly, welcome ideas. We had explored the possibility of doing organic chemistry during summer school, so that's something that is complicated and hasn't worked out so far, but we're certainly interested in that possibility.
As a result of the trip that I participated in November, we are working with the Jenkintown schools to see about the possibility of having a combined program to offer Chinese language this summer. So that continues to be in the works.
We also have had other districts inquiring about whether we would take tuition students because they've heard about our program. So we would be potentially open to that as well.
For the summer? Because we used to share with Wissahickon. And I think, how many years ago did we stop?
I believe it's
Two?
been 3
Yeah.
years.
Is it 2 or 3?
3 years.
Yeah. So last summer, we did not have any, non-Upper Dublin students attend?
At the elementary level, we've always had open enrollment, so students on a space available basis from out of district could enroll. I'm not sure if we've had that in the past with our secondary program.
Any other comments?
No,
Question?
how do you know anything about the transportation?
I do. Last year we did reduce. We used to have 4 runs a day, a morning run, a mid-morning run back and forth. Well, 6 runs, I guess, if you count back and forth, and then an end of morning run. And we decided that we would only provide transportation in the morning, and then again when summer school is over around 12:30. And we don't run to individual houses. We simply have pickup places that are usually our elementary schools and middle school.
So if they're doing the kindergarten, here we come, they'll drop off their child at one of the schools?
The kindergarten, since they're new students, I'm not sure how that works. Dr.
Okay.
Katsula?
I think the parents can also drop off.
Yeah, I would imagine they do a lot of that.
My own getting ready for kindergarten daughter participated
Mhm.
very happily last
Mhm.
summer, and I experienced the car line, and she had a wonderful experience. The teachers were fabulous.
But now we do everything in this building because of the AC.
Yes, and it
And
worked out so
worked out
well,
well.
and I just heard Mr. Schultz discussing with another school district how lovely it is to have young children
Mhm.
bubbling into the high school over the summer.
Do you bring some furniture over then, Mr. Schultz? For
We do.
Mhm.
Yeah, through Lynn Schroeder's work, we were actually able to give our special education extended school year students access to the swimming pool, and so it really has been a win-win situation.
Right, because what special ed programs are occurring? There's nothing listed here, but we do quite a few. We do a lot of it, special ed activities or programs, right?
Yes, extended school year programs. Mrs.
Or
Clegg,
the
details?
ESY programs. Okay.
By the end of February 28th, all IEP teams have to determine if a student's eligible based on specific criteria. And if they are eligible for extended school year, that programming is done in the summer. We run it concurrently with the summer school program so that we can make use of the facilities.
Right. Great.
If there's no other questions about that, the other 2 motions are going to be one to approve the Educational Impact Partnership, which I think we've already had some comments about, but if anyone has any other questions, and to approve the conferences.
I have one on each, a follow-up to the EI agreement. So is the expectation that we'll have the solicitors look at that before the legislative meeting next week?
Yes.
Okay. And on the conferences, we're sending 3 teachers to something called Flipped Learning, Cutting Edge Practical Strategies. Is that a sign that we are looking to embrace that more fully?
I think it's wonderful. That's teacher initiated, principal approved, and I have to say from personal experience, I have attended a lot of BER conferences, and every time as a teacher I walked away with some great new strategy ready to be put in place.
Yeah, so when this came across my radar, and Dr. Clark and I talked about a cadre of her teachers are going, and then more wanted to sign up. And I regularly present on flipped instruction, but it's hard to be a prophet in your own land, and there is a lot of value in the team being away from everything, outside of the district, being away, and being with practitioners who are in different schools, different settings, with different devices and different levels of digital access. And really, the flipped instruction comes to 2 things. What's valuable about direct instruction, and what can I do when it happens outside of the classroom? And what are the limits? Because when you're in the classroom doing direct instruction, which has its place, I can read body language. Can't necessarily do that when it's out of the classroom. But I can gather very powerful formative assessment data when it's happening, and that person can pursue that direct instruction at a personalized pace. The second part of that is the flip. What can you now do with your instructional time in the classroom that is personalized, differentiated, leverages cooperative group work and higher order thinking? And so, it has any pursuit of studying 21st century pedagogy and practice has my endorsement.
But what's nice is that I then get to come back to that team and say, okay, what were your takeaways? What can we do? What can we act on to move forward and share? And then when we have our peer-led professional development like we have in February, unfortunately, they're going right after that, right? But then we can look to April and say, great, I'm really glad you had those takeaways. Now it's time to step up, and you're going to lead.
So at this time, is the thought to grow flipped classrooms organically over time, or do you foresee an initiative around this at some point?
I think at this point it's teacher choice. There are certainly teachers around our district, many more at the elementary level right now through our partnership with CERN, but certainly also teachers at the middle school and high school. It is an instructional practice. It's a good instructional practice, but we also believe in teacher choice around instructional practices. Not all things work for all teachers, and there's a certain level of I think technology that's involved in flipping the classroom, but we're certainly willing to encourage it, and we respect it very much as a model.
I think that at short term, it helps build that learner capacity, and that by learner I mean the teacher for leveraging these tools. I think long term, it builds a foundation from which you then get to be very innovative with scheduling. So if we get to a space where we're seriously considering blended programs, where part of it is face-to-face and part of it is asynchronous online, then you have those teachers who have a high degree of facility with flipped classrooms say, I'm comfortable in this space. This is something I'd like to do. And we can look at districts like Quakertown that have already started that a long time ago, and they have some full cyber classes, they have blended classes, and their learners have more choice in saying, I want to take algebra. How do I want to take algebra? What resonates with me as a learner? I prefer the face-to-face every day right there. I want to take that as a blended course. Thanks.
If I can just build on something that Mr. Vinogradov mentioned, the richness of being out of the classroom, out of the school building, out of the office. This past weekend, Mrs. Morrison, Dr. Gritsula, Mr. Vinogradov, and I, and Mrs. Morrison's daughter, who is a graduate student at Penn, the five of us attended together the EduCon conference in Philadelphia, Science Learning Center, and the workshops were very powerful and very worthwhile, but the very rich, thick conversation that the five of us had as we gathered for lunch and chatted between, that was just as enriching as far as developing our capability and capacity. So I do also endorse the opportunity to get out there sometimes, and there are subtle extra add-ons, value added, if you would, to having those experiences. So we appreciate the board supporting those.
That's perfect segue for my next question, which is the Educational Leadership Summit that you're going to. That sounds like a great opportunity for the three of you. Can you just elaborate a little bit on what that is?
That's this summer in
Summer,
Hershey.
yeah, this summer.
Yes, the three of
That's
us
at
are,
Hershey.
not only are we attending that conference to really have the opportunity to, I don't want to use the word retreat, but we will go to workshops, but we also will spend a lot of time talking about how we're going to bring this back and implement it. We also are preparing a proposal to present at that conference. So that's underway. Fingers crossed that we will be able to present as well.
Great.
What are you trying to present on?
Phil, you are our lead writer. You want to fill that in?
I have to go back to my notes.
I think we're planning on presenting on teacher leaders and how teacher leaders can transform a culture.
And the exemplar that we have, of course, is the way we rolled out and launched the one-to-one initiative, which our success was due to those teacher leaders who stepped forward. And I think that's made us one step above most districts that have rolled out an initiative. So teacher leadership.
The last category is there are 2 pupil service motions on the table for moving forward for next week's legislative meeting. I have one question. Does this bring us to full strength for school psychologists right now? I know we've had a lot of turnover.
Not quite, because Melissa, coming from Therapy Source, is a 0.6 as opposed to a 1.0. So we are continuing to try to find some additional psychologist support, but the resources and the availability of psychologists throughout the county has been challenging. Everyone, when I talk to other people services directors, everyone, and the Montgomery County IU, everyone is searching for psychologist support and finding, challenge in that. So we are close to our 4.8 FTEs, but we're not there.
Okay. Hopefully we'll be able to find some additional. Okay, thank you. I think at this point we're ready for community input. If there's anyone from the community who would like to make any comments or questions, step to the microphone, state your name, the part of the community you're from. Okay. I guess everyone is happy, is that right?
Happy.
All right, well, if there are no community members who would like to speak, then I think we are adjourned.
I'd like to announce that following tonight's committee meeting, the board is moving to executive session to discuss personnel and legal issues.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.